Just want to say a quick hello to everybody before we get started on the actual meeting itself, as people are connecting up.
He's saying hello. Once again, I don't mind saying hello again.
Did, yeah. Okay, so Kumaran, you're a very well-connected guy. How many emails do you get a day, approximately?
Come again?
How many emails do you get a day, approximately? You're a very well-connected guy.
Okay. I have a team to take care of the pricing, but sometimes I get only me. Some agents are requesting only me. They never copy my agents or my pricing team. I have a pricing team for air and ocean. We have a team for exports and imports. We have a team for all India pricing. So sometimes some agent sends me directly. So what happens? I quickly jump into seat. Most of the time we're traveling. Most of the time I go out for calls and custom. When there's something, it's a small request like air shipments, works, I can quote approximately, but it's complicated like over dimensions and the rates are supposed to be worked with the shipping lines. I cannot quote immediately. I need to seek my pricing team, advice, because when you quote the rate, that's the, a mantra for the customers to win. So when you quote, you got to be very, very competitive, and you got to price out as for the shipping lines and the airlines, So when you quote, we need to check all these parameters. So I cannot quote immediately. At least I take maximum couple of hours to quote.
Okay. I think everybody has like a bit of a different focus and bit of angle on this. I mean, it's an interesting topic. Let me check with a couple of other people as well there. Who do we have in the room here? People with a camera showing. Daryl. We've not spoken before personally, but Daryl from Wallace in UK.
Yeah. Afternoon here, David. Yeah. Greetings to you all from sunny Essex in the UK.
Oh, right. Good to know it's sunny down there. Any comments from you? How many emails are you guys getting per day, you would say? In terms of rate requests or what?
Yeah, per day, I would say something in the region of around about half a dozen to say 10. It does vary, David, as you can appreciate. Right. It's a broad spectrum of air, ocean, and then, of course, some European thrown in as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's like, I know when we started to look at this topic as such, there's a couple of different angles to take it from in terms of the saturation of emails which are on our inboxes all the time, not just rate requests, but everything. Back in the day, people had like sort of secretaries to filter things out, whatever. Now it's just like sort of barrages onto everybody, copies to everyone as well. And really what we wanted to speak about today is a bit of a preliminary conversation for what's going to be talked about in Istanbul. And it is Marcus's journey. We're going to call it Marcus's journey. Marcus, just because it's a comment from many people, but he's the one who rather sparked this conversation up. And so the issue is, how many emails are we getting, and how bogged down are we with emails not allowing us to quote? And also on the flip side of that, how do we make our systems, our procedures more effective and efficient? So Marcus, tell us a little about your initiations. What inspired you to focus towards this aspect of improving your systems?
So what inspired us was the complaining of our quoting staff. Yeah, of course, money. At the end, money, of course. But the complaining of our staff who is in our pricing department, they always complained, so much to do. So we started to do research on how many quotes we really have. So it turns out that we have plus 1,000 agent quote requests, so not customer, agent quote requests per month. So, and then you start doing the math to try to be more efficient. In the beginning, we started to how can we save like 2 or 3 seconds per quote, or 5 seconds, or whatever. So that's how we started to set up tariffs in our system, try to get more efficient. But at the end, and which kind of bothered me, is that my staff got also the opportunity to hide behind a lot of little quotes and not following up the quotes which we verify as this is the worst quote to go after. So we try to be more efficient.
That was how many quotes we were receiving a month, you're saying?
1,000 agent quote requests. This is the majority of it. It's like 1 box or 2 boxes. The standard shipment, 60 by 60 by 60, 25 kg from Frankfurt to Hong Kong, or from Frankfurt to Bangalore, or from Frankfurt to Shanghai, or whatever. This really standard quote requests. Nothing special, nothing fancy, no temperature control, dangerous goods. So the majority is really 1 box, 2 boxes from A to B, door to port. That's where we started.
Okay, and timing of this, I know you were calculating approximately the timing required for each quote to go out or whatever.
Yeah, we started first with how much time does it take to get a quote done and read the information. So then we went one step further to put the financial number on it. So, and we figured out that the cost of one quote is between 8 and 14 euros. Depends a little. 8 and 14 euros per quote is the cost. So our conversion rate of this 1,000 quote requests is approximately 25 to 30%. It's not too bad. It's rather good for this agent quote requests. However, that also means that we do like 750 quotes for nothing. We don't get any return. We only get benchmarked or whatever. And that's where we kicked off to automate it, to try to make this like a self-working machine.
Okay. When you were looking at this in terms of like your timing and the costing per quote, whatever, I assume you were already working with rate management systems for your air freights as well. So it's a question of the automation once you already had like systems in-house in that case.
Yeah, correct. This was part of step one, trying to save a few seconds per quote. And we started to set up tariffs in our own system. Then we used an external provider for the air freight rates, like Web Cargo. They're different on the market. Web Cargo, Cargo AI, just to mention the two of these. To have like a data warehouse for all the rates that we just have to enter the details, pick up from here, one box, 50 by 50 by 50, 25 kg, get all the rates and send it out to the customer or to the agent.
Okay. Do you have any means of measuring? I mean, you mentioned 25 to 30% success rate in the quotes, which I don't know if anybody else in the room would like to say that's a good or a bad rate. I see that as reasonably effective because these days, of course, there's so much spraying around of emails with quotes to everybody. If you're picking up that sort of number, I would say that's actually quite effective. Would you not agree, or are you disappointed?
No. This has nothing to do with being disappointed about this. So, in my belief, it's agent quote request 25 to 30% is a rather good number. The majority of friends of mine, they have like. But again, it's about efficiency. Again, the cost per quote is that high that we have to try to drive down those costs. And the goal for us is not to get rid of stuff here, that we reduce our pricing team. It's rather being faster, being more accurate, because, again, when we automate it and it picks just prices, pulls it together, there is no room for a typo error or something like this. So we just respond to the data we get and trying to be even more successful than we are at the very moment and drive the cost down per quote for all the quotes we don't get.
Okay, great. Thank you for that initial comment, Marcus. Just before we go on in terms of what you went for and your why you decided on those choices, any comments from anybody else in the audience at the moment? Are you having similar problems? How are your numbers in terms of your success rate with quotes and number of quotes you have? Anybody like to comment on that? Or a few thoughtful and open people here? Richard?
I would like to say, Richard? Sorry, Marcus, did I mishear you? What did you say was your win rate?
25 to 30%.
Are you getting Graham Cox to do those in the UK? Because I'm going to give him a job if he's winning that. That's pretty high. I don't mind saying that on those sort of quotes, we measured it last year was about 14.5%, and I was pretty happy with that. It's been lower, but yeah, that's exceptional.
I mean,
the numbers you quote in terms of
the rates, with your margins, you can influence it a little, right? And following up on that and being fast. Being fast is the biggest key on that.
I think the biggest thing that we are trying to improve is the level of follow-up, okay? Because when you talk about 1,000 quotes per month, that figure isn't too far away, and that's a lot of work. So the staff will say we haven't had time to follow up properly because we're just too busy doing the quotes. And I think quality over quantity, you're better off doing a quote, following up, having dialogue, asking the right questions. But of course, a lot of what we get is sent out to a lot of other people, and the team just feel under pressure to do those quotes. Whereas I'm saying, no, you should ask the questions and qualify whether it's something we want to do. So I think quality over quantity, but it's hard to follow up. If you have 1,000 quotes a month, the team, I don't know how many people you have doing those, but the team would be getting them off their desk.
How do you qualify the quote requests out of 1,000 when you have the people following up on that? And again, you are absolutely right in saying they are overwhelmed with work and they don't have the time to follow up on what we probably mean this is the worst quote to follow up on, like anything over 1,000 kg, or when you see this agent requested already like 10 times in the last 2 weeks. It's worth following up because they are interested in work with you. Absolutely. But how do you qualify one quote over another?
I guess by asking questions like, do you have target rates? Is this an existing client of yours? A lot of the quotes we do or we see, the reason we don't win them is because the agent doesn't win them. It's not that they are using somebody else. It's that they're not winning the jobs, because we go and say, look, we've given you 10 quotes. We haven't seen any bookings. And they're honest. And they come back and say, we haven't won them. We're not winning them either, But we're trying to get away from.
Win it? This is also the question we got to ask, probably because we quoted too late, or this agent, we gave the quote too late that he can just quote late to his customer, and that's why we didn't win it, or what was the reason? Do we know?
I think speed is the key. I do think speed is the key.
Okay.
And that's another reason.
So I personally believe I was a little bit surprised when I had 25% hit rate from Marcus, but anyway, that's like another point. Maybe he has very competitive rates. Who knows? That's maybe a possibility before we start on this topic in that case then. But in that case, you've identified the problem, you've identified some of the cost. So what's next? I understand lots of talk about AI in all parts of our life. And was that part of it? You were like wondering what the hell AI can do to help you out at this moment in time, or what were the steps before then?
Yeah, well, of course, this is, again, we're talking about all this standard shipment requests. We don't talk about about the fancy stuff. And all the standards we pay our people to reading one tariff and another tariff, bring this on one piece of paper and send it out as a quote. So they're reading a pickup tariff, they have the terminal handling charges and the app rate. This is 3 different tariffs. They consolidate all this information and send it out. And that's when we started to talk with like software companies. Graham, you picked up with Matt in Vietnam, huh?
Yeah, anyone that was in Vietnam know I gave the AI people quite a hard time. Don't know whether they appreciated it. The initial contact after that with Matt, he didn't reply to his email for a week and a half. And then that gave me even more ammunition to go, have you not got AI on your own mailbox? And that didn't go well. Yeah, so I kind of, look, all the big boys, everyone's using AI. They're investing a butt ton of money in trying to get to do as much as possible without having any operator that they're paying for to touch a keyboard is basically what they're trying to do. So it was then kind of looking at who we could maybe have further discussions with about doing that. Like, we all know the sort of like, we all know that everyone knows the rates boards. You got Web Cargo, Cargo AI, Cargo One, there's lots of them. So my initial step was I reached out to every single one of them and went, can you give me a list of the airlines that you cover? Some didn't come back for about 2 weeks, but Web Cargo seemed to give us a decent spread. Do you know what I mean? They had a lot of airlines and it was quite a decent spread. And then that's when we were then in discussions with, right, okay, because you need to pick one. Like, you just need to pick one as your data warehouse. You can't get around it. So then you kind of have to start the program with them and go, right, how can we make this work, that work? Can I put my tariffs in? Can I get the standard charges in? And then kind of when you've built we've been using the term data warehouse just because it makes sense, like your information's in there. And then that's when we were talking about Rippy as to how they can then take out the manual process of our operators, putting the information in to Web Cargo, say for us, or you could use other suppliers are available, and then getting it to just take out all that front end work and just go straight into the back end and pull the information out.
Let's take a bit of a step back from there before we go too far. Glenn, I think we have you in the room. We've been talking about Glenn and Matt. We're talking about Rippy AI. I met Glenn, 3 years ago? I know, some time ago in that case, and yes. And as with most people looking into AI things, you initially like sort of thinking, well, that's quite impressive. And then you're thinking, will it really work? All these companies like sort of showing lots of great presentations. And so it's what I'm very enthusiastic about in this case here is that Rippy are engaging with Crass to try to sort of see exactly what they can solve with it. So before we get into the actual decision of rate management and whatever, and Alexandra is with us as well, of course. Glenn, please tell us a little bit about what Rippy is trying to help Crass with from your perspective, and also the freight forwarders in a similar line.
Yeah, David. So really, first of all, we've been on this journey for quite a while. I think I'll say that a lot of the companies are, not logistics focused. I think number one makes it a little bit more difficult. And I think, Graham, you know this when you talk to Matt, who is the founder of Rippy, He was used to be a BCO, and he founded a rate management system, Catapult, before Rippy AI. So he knows the pain of actually receiving quote really slowly because he hated it when he was a shipper. He absolutely hated it. So that, he founded a rate management system, and then after he sold it, he founded an AI company, which is Rippy AI. And one of the key things that he wants to use Rippy to help the forwarders to automate all of those inbound spot quote emails, so that they don't have to do all of the manual entry work. I guess the key over here is that Rippy built the logistics LLM that understands the logistics terminologies in lingual, so that we're able to understand a quote request email that comes in, such as, hey, is this an FCL? Is it LCL? Is it an air? Right? We understand the modalities of the quotes. We understand the context of each of quote, right? Some of them says POL, some of them says POD, some of them says origin. We're able to interpret the context of that easily. So we get origin, destination, commodities, all of the basic information that you might need to produce a quote. So Rippy interprets that, grab the right information, and then goes into the chosen system. In this case, from Crass side is the web cargo. So go to the right system to punch in one of those right data sets, right? Again, a lot of them likely will be the door to airport door rate. So you have to select the right, pickup information, and then finally produce a quote that is ready to be sent to either the internal team of Marcus or that go even directly to the customer, depends on the threshold. So really is that we're using AI to replicate human behavior, to read the emails, to go fetch a rate from a rate management system, to put together a quote in your email inbox, and then to send it out. So we replicate entire repetitive human behavior. And Marcus' team can choose to approve a quote within certain threshold, say that it's less than 300 kgs. He will just auto-approve it. It goes out to the customer within 30 seconds of time upon receiving that email. Or that if it's above a certain threshold, then he can review it. He can review the quote and make sure everything is good, and then click on approved or adjusted and approved. And it goes out to the customer. In any case, his team doesn't have to read the email. It doesn't have to go to the system to grab the rate, right? Waiting for a few minutes. It doesn't have to go create another email again for his client. Everything's put on a plate for him so that he can just click of a button. It sends that information out to their clients. So this is what we're doing to help Press, and it will be running 24/7 behind the scene. It does not go into his email inbox. We'll create a designated email address for him that, his email can be just auto forwarded to us. And once we receive those email, the AI will get activated, and then we'll start to work behind the scene. In a really high level, that's what we're doing for Crass.
That's great. Okay, there's a few things which come to my mind. I don't know whether people have other questions, but the first things obviously which jump out, and this is before we get involved with the rates themselves and the RTM system. Is it accurate? What's missed here without having the human connection? And Richard was talking a bit about the follow-up and asking a few more questions about target rates, whatever, which maybe is not an initial quote. I mean, what are we missing here? Of course, we're going towards a greater efficiency, but I know, are you getting the right rate? What level of responsibility is it if you give like a rate which is $1,000 more or less? How does this all play into the system in that case?
Yep, David, this is really good questions. Of course, it's also a loaded question. So first of all, for the rate accuracy, right? The rate accuracy is always depending upon your rate management system, right? So what we're doing is that typically for the AI service provider, we connect to your rate management system via API. So during the implementation phase, you'll be able to test it, right? You're able to punch in, PVG to Frankfurt and figure out if the race is correct. Because normally if one or multiple rates are accurate, and those rates are accurate, right? So it's all depending on the rate data within your rate management system, how much they updated. So we have a lot of emphasis on, do you have a really efficient rate management system tool? If you have that, you have a good foundation for it. Now, we do have customers using rate sheets, right? And if they're keeping those rate sheets up to date, then that's also possible. But at the end of the day is that you got to ask yourself, right? If my staff go into those rate management system, are they getting the right rate? If so, then we'll be getting the right rate. So I think that's the first question of, are you putting the right rate? And again, you can get that, right? The second thing, it goes down to I would say, the things that we can process or cannot process, right? So like I said, we're working with Marcus is that in the phase 1 of the rollout, we're not going to tackle all of the quote request email. So we're going to tackle the standard regular quote request email. so that we ignore the hazardous, right? We ignore the temperature control, those tricky ones, oversize, overweight, over length. So we can set parameters that we don't touch those at this point. And whenever we see those quote requests that comes in, it goes back to the human team. So the AI is designed to handle the one that is repetitive, standard, and we're very efficient on that, right? So that is the phase one, so that you can get familiar with it and be able to quickly get those out of the way for you, and then his team can focus on those more challenging quotes. And that's how.
What does that look like in terms of an inbox? So I walk into the office in the morning with inbox and I've got whatever 30 emails. I will find that there are 10 exceptions which I have to look at personally. There are 20 which just need me to approve, or I can later say, okay, I'll just let it approve itself because I'm confident with the system. Is that more or less how it works, or what's the vision there?
I can jump in here, Glenn. So our wish product is, of course, that this runs behind the scenes. This is our wish list. So we have a Christmas wish list. So let's see if Glenn can fulfill it. But I believe so. I'm confident that we will. It will be a learning curve for all of us. And exactly what Glenn said, we have to build exceptions. We have to figure out what exceptions these are, like dangerous goods, temperature control, oversize, yada, yada, yada. Whatever we want to kind of have human interaction so that our specialists look after it. And all the others, the standard code requests should run, in best case, fully automatically. Just the wish product.
Okay, right. Let's pull Alexander in at this moment in time. Yes, of course, Glenn, you've been mentioning that what you need is of course an organised and a correct rate management system. So let's pass the buck down to WebCargo. Are you seeing this sort of implementation of WebCargo? WebCargo has been around for 15 years? I don't know how long. Quite a long time now.
Little bit more. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, David, and the rest of the teams. Just let me first say that I feel a little bit sad when I hear that is exactly the same with Cargo or the other platforms. It hurts because it's not we have at the moment, and it's not that I work for WebCargo. Of course, I'm representing here WebCargo. We have in here, as you say, David, like, we were the first ones, so that's why we have the biggest coverage in number of airlines connect. Of course, there is other systems that works also good, but in terms of airlines coverage, we are by far the leaders at the moment, at least. So yeah, this is, I think, that something that is important to point out. Answer to your question, this conversation with Marcus and the rest of the guys is like very is something that we hear and we listen every day from our customers. So the difficulty on really be able to quote every request that they get from customers and especially partners. Yeah, so I think that is really a topic that is super interesting. So thank you for inviting us here. Yeah.
I mean, so in terms of obviously if you have just like one airline with the best rates, you can get the rates out quickly. Your tool allows people to check between many other options, but of course it still requires, as Marcus was saying before, what was he saying? 8 to 14 euros in cost time per quote. So even using your system or another rate management system, but like, so here we're looking at integrating the rate management system with Glenn's RIPI. Sorry, are you seeing this with other clients of yours? Do you know of other multinational clients which are using AI for getting the rates out quicker, or is it just an automated system where they are plugging to a database? How is this operating with other clients which you are seeing in that case?
Honestly, this is and learning from Crash is the first time that I knew about Ripley. So happy to know them. I think that sounds really promising and interesting what they are doing. At the end, we are all here working on automatization, efficiency, and streamlining of the process. So I think that makes perfect sense. We do this part together with the airlines. So we have the rates, we put everything together in front of the freight forwarder. So then systems like Ripley, for me, makes perfect sense, like in this process, now to streamline everything. What we hear from other platforms or from multinationals or other customers are more like a specific solution sometimes that they have, but very punctual things. For example, the possibility of reading the emails and converting it into rate request to the airlines. These are the things that I typically, me and my team, typically we hear more or we encounter more. So the possibility of reading the emails and transfer it into a quote. First time that I hear about Weekly.
Okay. I asked before to Glenn, what is missed in terms of like the personal connection, I suppose, is part of the question there, in terms of in the old days, before I was working in this industry, like ringing up the airlines and asking for having a certain rapport with the airlines, negotiating rates with a certain volume of it. Of course, this is kind of missed in a way. Do you think that is something which is, we would agree with that point, or is that not really something which is the human element, shall we say?
The human element and customer service. I was at Multimodal yesterday, and I gave both barrels to like every single shipping line that was there, because the shipping lines and the airlines, and to be fair, lots of the bigger companies, if you look at your utilities people, your phone providers, your everything, customer service went out the window during COVID, and it just hasn't come back. Like, they don't want to have people doing customer services. They all want to just have minimal staff and have an automated system with dynamic rates that's controlled effectively by some bot crunching numbers on their, you know, return efficiency on a particular route at any given minute.
Right, yeah. I mean, there's obviously like, I think it was Richard brought up earlier, the nuance of like sort of human interaction and sort of finding out a little bit more about the traffic itself. I mean, for a spot rate, there's no two ways about it. You have a shipment to move, it's that rate. I mean, is it part of a larger traffic or whatever? Of the opinion that it just doesn't really matter anymore. It's just a question of, quote, 1 by 1, Graham, and that's it, yes? So we're not really losing anything by having a system which is effective and efficient, as is web cargo.
Not necessarily. Like, I agree with Rich. Don't tell him. I agree with Rich in certain aspects, but kind of our plan is we want to free up their time so that they can have time to do more follow-up and evolve conversations on, like Marcus said, if a particular agent's asked you to quote 10 times in the last 2 weeks and you haven't got anything, then you need to stay to them, right, okay, how can we, they're like, oh, we didn't get it. Okay, why didn't you get it? Why didn't we get it? But then in order to have that time, to have the human interaction, you need to automate really a load of it or employ a buttload more people, which then makes your price per quote significantly higher, because you're employing human beings to do 90% of the work.
Okay, automated work, yeah, sure. What about the issue? What's
it's also like a matter. I mean, again, when this is automated, and we have, especially here in Europe, there's an US partner requesting a quote on his noon or afternoon, he won't get any response up until Monday. With the automation, at least we can cover standard requests, and he can quote immediately to his customer. So speed again.
Okay. What about accuracy? I asked Len before, and of course, everybody in IT tells that computers either work or don't work. It's either 1 or 0. So like if, for example, Marcus pumps out a rate of 2,000 euros, whereas Lufthansa's actually got a cost of 3,000 euros, and somewhere down the line there's an error in this. Is it Lufthansa's web? Is it the transmission from web cargo? Is it the understanding of Rippy? Or who does Marcus go to for his 1,000 euros, which he's down on? How accurate is all of this?
We won't know until we do it. That's the simple answer.
But this is a question to the IT people, right? How accurate is it? We don't know.
Like the IT people, like this is kind of the way the IT works. So like Glenn's system will only pull out of, for argument's sake, we're dealing with web cargo, right? Glenn's system will only pull out the information that's in web cargo for your standard FOBs, your collection tariff. So if you've got bad data in your data warehouse, Rippy's always going to pull bad data as the result. So therefore, the idea is to try and keep your data warehouse as up to date and cross-checked as much as possible. But the simple answer is it's a new project, and until we start firing stuff into it and getting stuff out, we have actually no idea how accurate it's going to be.
And David and Graham, if you don't mind, I'm chiming in. When we initially started, we got all of the quote automatically responded to the customer, like without the human touches. So like Graham said, right? I think in the middle of the journey, we kind of pivoted a little bit to say, hey, we have 2 options. One is going back to the customer directly without any human interaction. And the other one is approval process, right? So I think for most of the companies, when they're starting out, we feed all the quote requests back to their team. So their team can review the cost, they can approve the cost before it goes out. So you can do that for the next, say, 2 or 3 months until you feel comfortable. Then you're like, okay, now the system is good. You know, it's been consistent. It's been giving me good data, and I can allow certain type of quote go directly back to the customer. So you always have that option. I have some customer would never go automatic, meaning that they would always want to approve the quote. That's fine. That's absolutely okay, and they want to have that human touch elements of that, it's okay. And certain customer, because they have a lot of quote, they couldn't touch every single quote. They're like, that's the threshold within, X number of kgs, it goes back automatically because the amount is so small. I'm okay, I can afford that, right? Even if there's some sort of non-human touch elements in there. Right? So I think you can kind of set it up, but at the end of the day is that you have time to build that comfort level, right? And get used to it before you have it full blown and have it fully automated. So you're in control in whichever way that you want. So I just want to kind of emphasize that there's no concern on keep on sending them the wrong way.
I think it's quite unfair to accuse IT systems of being inaccurate. I mean, if the alternative is a human system, that's clearly not fail-proof either. So I mean, of course, one is the other, but it's kind of a little bit disheartening if we get the wrong rate. I mean, Alexander, I'm not accusing web cargo necessarily of a blip in their system, but there must be times when you get claims against your system of providing a rate which is not given by the airline. What's the procedure? What's the frequency, and what happens in those cases?
Okay, so first is we need to understand that we have different types of rates, not just in web cargo, but in the market, let's say. So one thing are the dynamic rates. The dynamic rates are coming directly from the airlines through API, so no human intervention. These are like the dynamic rates, so API directly from the airline system. No issue there because rates comes directly, and 99.8% of the times they are correct. Then we have the manual ones. So we have a manual process to upload the rates coming from the customers, like the console rates or the specific rates, the special agreements they have. So of course there is a human part here. And third part will be the part that the freight forwarder insert themselves into the web cargo as their FOB chargers, their tracking. Yeah, so this is also based on human intervention. So of course, as Graham was mentioning, it depends on how good we do our work here. The freight forwarder by loading their own rates the best as possible, and also our teams. Yeah, I must admit that of course from time to time we have errors. When we put human hands, we can incur in errors there, but typically it's a process that we have been doing for a long time, and we have it like quite good solution, let's say. We do it depending on the market and depending on the change of the rates of the airlines, but is something that we do regularly, and we check every day, let's say, the rates. But yeah, some errors can happen.
Yeah, and some errors can happen. Sometimes there's interpretation of the rates given by the airline, in which case, I don't know, are there... Yeah, presumably there are claims there. For example, somebody makes a booking on Lufthansa. I mean, they're made a booking at whatever, 1,000 euros. It's like 1,000 euros more. Does this happen? And you say, like, if it comes through the API from the airline, it is 100% fail-proof, or not your responsibility in a sense, but it's your transmission of their data in that case.
Correct. This is not our responsibility. At the end, we are a platform just connecting the different dots. Yeah, so we connect the airline API to the freight forwarders. So we just mirror what we get from the airline. So of course we don't have responsibility there, but the rate to acceptance is around 98%. So yes, from time to time, talking about dynamic and API rates we receive is really, really, really good. Yeah, it's different of the manual process for the rest of the things. But it happens not just in web cargo or in other platforms. Sometimes we all know that we call an airline, we mail an airline, they give us a rate, and 100% of the times they don't provide this rate. Yeah, 1 or 2 times per month, per year, or whatever, they cannot commit, or they cannot give you the rate that they commit. So we need to talk about them, we need to talk to them. So it's exactly the same if you do through web cargo or through any other platform. In these little exceptions, you need to talk to the airline and then find a solution that is good for both.
Now, as I say, it's quite hard to demand 100% accuracy level of a computer when the alternative is so 5 staff who are going to make errors from time to time. It's not exactly a fair benchmark one way or the other in that case. And let me see if I can pull other people in. I mean, are other members of SCN or other freight forwarders here looking at these sorts of systems? Is this all just something you're looking to in the future? Anybody has tried any other systems or similar?
David, could I just say that I looked at Rippy AI, I think at one of the conferences, and I was just blown away, and I still am, to be honest. And I think that within 12 to 36 months, I wouldn't be surprised if every single member or near enough is using this or a similar type of tool. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, I remember we used Freightos, WebCargo, companies like that. I remember when they came in, people were skeptical, and you talk about the accuracy, but it's far more accurate than the human being, and it's not the system, it's the human who's put the details on there where the information is transferred. I think everyone will be using this 6 months, 12 months, within 3 years. Everyone will be using it. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it's bringing so many efficiencies, speed. I think the problem that scares people is, where's it mapped to? They like it, and it's like, but we don't have the rates in a place that it can get to. And if they can pull them out of someone like WebCargo or Cargo One or wherever, then it's almost a no-brainer. I think that was the difficult part. Yeah, I really like it, but what Graham keeps saying, data warehouse. I don't actually have a data warehouse. I have some crappy spreadsheet. But I think once that's eliminated, that problem, everyone's going to be using it. Just hope Glenn's not going to charge €13.99 per transaction to beat Marcus's 14 or whatever. So, but I think it's fantastic. So that's my prediction. I think very soon everyone will be using it. Everybody.
Thanks very much, Richard. Yes. And are we ahead of the curve here in SCN?
Sorry, my microphone was off. Is also working together with some of the more common logistical platforms which are in the market, like is it the Scope from Riga or something?
I can
No,
add to
at
that.
the minute, it's not working with Riga Scope. And for us, as we use it, we can't get them to actually talk to each other. That's the problem. But you can only try and build stuff around the roadblocks that you have.
Yeah, but the only disadvantage we actually have, what we figured out, is making the reports of the conversion rate, because we have then one set of tools with Rippy AI and WebCargo who's quoting, and another set of tools, which is Riga as our transport management system. We just have to find a way to bring this data together to really be accurate on the conversion rate. It's the only thing you miss.
Just so I can understand that. So you can make a booking within your TMS, in this case, within Scope, and that all works through correctly, assuming there is an accepted quote. Or if it's like a quote request, you can get that through Rippy and WebCargo in this case, to a point where the quote is, and then you have to introduce that information into the booking in Riga, yes?
Yeah. At the moment, they don't talk to each other. So our initial thought is to just use it for air freight export quotes, right? We're trying to start with the basics. The bulk of the emails, like Marcus said, bulk of the emails come from overseas agents. They want to pick up from such and such a door and to an arrival airport. Simple. But then the other quoting for road, for sea, for cross trade, that wouldn't be done in WebCargo. So your air quotes will sit over here in WebCargo, and then all your other quotes will sit in Riga. It's not ideal, but Sasha's on here. I'm sure he'd love to go down that rabbit hole.
Actually, Alexandra has her hand up before Sasha, so let us pass the word over to Alexandra.
No, just for the information of everyone here, I perfectly know Riga because we have been also talking about synchronizations in our way to give more efficiency to the freight forwarder. So exist a way, we have some APIs that can connect with your TMS directly. So we can synchronize quotations and we can synchronize also e-booking information with the TMS. But then us as a software company, we find a stopper in the TMS regarding this. Yeah, so the solution exists. We have it, but of course, then we need to trust that the TMS will take our hand and be possible or do this connection possible. But it exists. We are able to connect, again, quotations and e-bookings with every TMS now. But they need to open the door. And this is like one of the stoppers we find.
I think it's important as well to note that we are talking about a project and a journey which is going on. All the pieces are not there. All the pieces are not working at the moment. But of course, if this is going to be, as Richard has predicted, in 2 or 3 years, everybody's going to be using it, you need to be either doing this now or at least listening to what people are doing to see how we can get your systems up to speed and seeing what is working, what is not working, and learn from the mistakes of others. So I think, first of all, we have to thank all the WebCargo class and Rippy for sort of taking part in this journey, shall we say. Now, if we have a journey which will include also Riga in the next phase 2, well, that is also something to be seen as well, I'm sure, yes? We have Sasha here with his microphone and his camera off. We're not too sure. Sasha, hello?
Yes, hello.
He's gone to lunch.
No, I'm always there, always listening in the back.
No, what I can say, of course, it's an important topic for us as well. We already integrated now Cargo AI in our quotation module as well. So you can do the airline booking and the quotation setup within scope as well. But of course, it also depends on like what Marcus and Graham said. It's like the number of quotations that you do for standard quotations and the one that are more exceptional because they are where you have to have somebody human there to take a look into things. I think these are more listed than into our TMS rather than having the outsourced one for the generic ones.
But in a sense, the idea here is to try to remove the volume of emails which is coming in with the email requests or whatever.
Right.
Is Riga looking into some sort of AI solution for reading emails within the TMS, or is that not something which is on the agenda at the moment with Riga?
Not at the moment, as I'm aware of.
Okay,
So we are
right.
looking more into the integrations now for the quotation process itself with Cargo AI or with Web Cargo, for example. Also the same in ocean freight, to integrate this one so it's seamless and you're still working within scope to get all the information out, so you do not have to exit scope and look on web pages and other stuff like that. But that's the first step that we're still working on for that.
Okay, now Glenn, a comment for me, please.
Yes. So we have been working with a lot of ERP systems, I guess, including talking to Riga, CargoWise, Descartes, a lot of the big ones out there. So here's what we commonly see. I want to kind of differentiate because there's a lot of times this quotation, this booking, right? So there's a rating element. I have not seen a lot of ERP system, operating system for say, can do the rating because they're not designed to rate the quote because you have 10 different options, right? When it comes in from web cargo, you have different airlines, you have the lowest cost, fastest transit, different combinations, right? So traditionally, we've been seeing that a lot of the ERP system is not able to display those rates, and that's normally done by a rate engine like Web Cargo or like the likes of Catapult, right, for ocean freight. But then the role that the ERP system takes on is to be able to convert once, say that Marcus wants to book a particular quotation, then those ERP system would connect to the likes of Web Cargo, so it allows them to do the booking. This we have seen. And like Alexandra have said, as long as those systems opening up their doors allows them to do the e-booking, they can sync the booking directly to the system. Now, what we can do in between is that once we rate a quote, right, provided a quote using Rippy's platform, we're actually able to synchronize that back to the ERP systems because they normally have a quotation module that stores the rate. So really it's the quote history, if that's what it is. So we're able to digitize those data. We tell them that, hey, here was the origin destination plus the rate. We would load them into the system. At the time of converting those, right, to say, hey, I have sent out 1,000 quotes. Those 200 are getting converted to the bookings, so they can convert that. So we have done that for, for example, to the system like CargoWise, they call it quick quote, the one-off quote, right? We can store that data, but really that's a creation of the quote, but that's not a rating. I just want to be clear on that. That is this, on that. But a lot of ERP systems are able to do the latter of storing the quote and provide a booking option. But rating side, a lot of times still, we see that most efficiently is through a rate management service provider because it is complex. It has a lot of structure like the door rate that built in there, which requires a lot of work. So I just kind of want to emphasize that. But I'm really hoping to see the journey that obviously the operating system connecting with the rate module also allows them to have more flexibilities. But this is what we have observed in the market.
Thank you for those comments. Yes. Okay, right. What have we not mentioned in this conversation? There was something you just mentioned on there, Glenn, which was when you look at Web Cargo, you get, for example, the cheapest rate, the fastest rate, things like that. What is this system going to do? Just cheapest rate? That's for you, Marcus, maybe. Yeah. The question: what's your aim there to answer with the cheapest rate? Even if it's like from a strange airline with lack of space ability or whatever, or
probably one of the some customers they pick, especially those strange airlines, to get the cheap rate. Yes, but in best case, we have a quotation covering like the door to port rate, so like the pre-carriage and terminal, and then 2 or 3 options of airline.
Okay. Anyway, we'll see
how
how
this
this
works.
goes.
You want to
don't know
that part is actually built in your data warehouse, yeah, where you give, if you have preferred airlines and blah, 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 you can give the airlines a weight between 1 and 10. So if they're your favorite airline, they'll have a 10. And then when then Rippy goes to get the quotes, it will try and pick up, say, Turkish or, do you know what I mean? But that is, I know it's very complex, right? For us logistics people, it's an IT thing, but we got to bear with it, right? You then can set what rates you want Web Cargo to give back to Rippy for it to pull the stuff out.
So if Web Cargo is announcing Ouagadougou Airlines with an exceptionally cheap rate, but hasn't got many flights and whatever, you can filter that out and it doesn't give that as a quote, yeah?
Well, you can build exceptions, so don't use this airline. So you can build exceptions.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we don't know how far we are ahead of the curve to just quote you, and we don't know where it brings us. Probably in the like one year from now, nobody has to even touch like a temperature controlled or dangerous goods request. We don't know.
Yeah. Okay, right. Well, I mean, as I say, the reason for this conversation was just to get a little bit of interaction with some of the members to see how they are doing. I hope it sparked some interest. Really what we want to know is in September, will Marcus be rolling up to our conference in Istanbul in a Rolls Royce or on a bicycle, basically? That's the big question, which remains for us, because we will be continuing this conversation. As I say, this is not a project for 1 week or so. It's going to be a bit of a rollout, and we are hoping that other SCN members and other people as well can participate as well, and see if we can become more efficient, get rid of some of those unwanted emails. And for that reason, I thank Marcus and also Graham from Cross Logistics for giving their insight into what they're trying to do. I thank, of course, as ever, Alexandra for waving the flag of Web Cargo, which is not the only rate management system, but certainly the one which is chosen here for good reasons. And Glenn at Rippy, who is becoming an increasingly important, I think, an increasingly demanded service. And we'll see exactly how it fits into the rest of the equation. And so it's very, very pleased to have you along. Speaking about this in Istanbul is not just a question of rock up to Istanbul and have some beer with your mates. That's not what SCN meetings are about. Well, we might have a couple of Coca-Colas, but it's really about seeing what you can learn from the rest of the people in the network. And so that's really what we want to try to make sure everybody comes to Istanbul and other meetings to learn something and progress together in that case then. Okay, so we'll have another meeting of the same topic at 7 p.m. European time this evening. Of course, we're going to be losing some of the Asians who will be in bed by then, and presumably we'll be gaining some Americans will have woken up. Thank you, especially for Glenn, who's woken up. Thank you, especially early for this meeting. I forget, you're in Toronto, you say, Glenn?
Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
Nice early start for you, I guess. So again, so thanks everybody. Sorry about the quality of my sound. I'll see if I can get that sorted out for my next meeting. See you all in Istanbul, I hope. Maybe at 7 p.m. you want to have another further interest. If you want to pass some questions on to the people here at the meeting, certainly pass those questions on to us here at SCN, and we'll try to get into the right place so you can be answered in that case.
Thank you for organizing, everyone.
Thank you, David.